Welcome to the Odds Breakers, number one place for shared, sharp betting information.
All right, welcome back to podcast 73 of 2019. I'm your host, Kiev O'Neill. You can tweet me at OBKiev. Tweet us at The Odds Breakers. Follow us on social media / The Odds Breakers. This episode is brought to you by jazzsports.ag for a 50% sign-up bonus. Please visit Jazz Sports. Use the promo code ODDSBREAKERS. Terms and conditions apply. If you'd like to help us out with our costs and sponsor the podcast and website, we would love to help you out. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com, click shop, and become a member for $17.99 a month. You can get my plays and premium plays before the line moves. For $2 more, you can have all that and become a patron subscriber. Get the podcast a little bit early. And if nothing else, please visit theoddsbreakers.com and become a free picks newsletter subscriber. All right. What a great weekend of championship football in college. Holy cow. It was just a lot of great games. We went 6-5-1, I believe, in college. Let me look at the analysis. College last week. Nope, just 6-5. NFL was awesome as usual since Thursday. The Bears play. We were 6-3-1. Tampa pushed there. 6-3-1. Fantastic in the NFL. College basketball wasn't quite as good. We were 0-2-1 by Saturday, but then we won one of our premium play, only premium play on Sunday. So 1-2-1. That's okay. It was a great weekend, and I got to tell you, obviously my Badgers lost to Ohio State. They put up a dang good fight and, kind of jumped them in the first half, and then Ohio State turned up the volume, and we turned down the volume. I mean, crazy. We went out there and laid an absolute egg. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And I first want to get into how we did on our future bets. Cincinnati was 7-1, Baylor was 26-1, and Wisconsin was 14.5-1. Well, the good news is for the Baylor one, we threw about 10 of those units on Oklahoma, the money line minus 300. So we made 3 units back, made up for that one just right off the bat. Then we added all those bets together, and I sent this to premium subscribers, and we parlayed them all, moneyline parlay, on Memphis, on Ohio State, and on Oklahoma, and that paid about even, plus 100. And so we did that and cashed out. Obviously, if any of those other plays, see, it was too hard to hedge Ohio State and well, not so much Cincinnati, but it was only 7-1. At 14.5-1, I didn't want to hedge Ohio State laying minus 700, and I did a little in the second half, though. And so we nailed that one. And in the second half, it was only Ohio State minus 11 at plus 100. So I could have, if the Badgers won by 1 or 2 points, or even 3, I would have pushed. I could have actually doubled up that. So I was like, perfect. I threw 5 units on Ohio State minus 11, or 5 times my future bet there, and was able to cash in well on that as well. So everything worked out fantastic for the future bets. Unfortunately, obviously, Wisconsin could not get it done. And I'll tell you, they came out extremely flat. And I sometimes think that teams take their personality of their coach, and Paul Chryst is a great coach. That's the thing. I'm not ripping. When I say this, and I got a lot of heat from this on our Badger fan page and all that, I was saying we got out coached the second half. It doesn't mean I want him fired. it means that he just got out coached. Nick Saban got out coached against Dabo Swinney last year. And I'll take Nick Saban out of over everybody in college football, probably even Dabo yet, but that's getting really close. But no, I'm just saying that I think he could be elite. He's just not there yet. The Badgers imploded. They couldn't complete a pass in the third. Their play calling was next to nothing. Jake Ferguson the big tight end wasn't even really targeted. They just game planned for us. They kept manning on Cephas. We had no other options because A.J. Taylor was injured. And what Big Ten didn't mention is that we lost our best linebacker, or second best, whatever, Bond and Chris Orr. Chris Orr was out when he hit Garrett Rand. They ran into each other, and both players got injured in one freaking play in the second quarter. That really hurt the Badgers, and they got eaten up by that. But at the same time, as Twitter pointed out, the Zebras didn't exactly help the Badgers out much at all. I heard a stat that there hasn't been one holding call on Ohio State the last two Badger championship games, which blows my mind, but I'm not going to bag on the refs here. Twitter did a plenty good job doing that. I'm just going to focus on the fact that we would have lost the game anyway. We imploded, and there needs to be better quarterback play in the second half. There needs to be more depth. I mean, Ohio State's athletes are 4 and 5 stars. We have 9 4 and 5 stars athletes. They have like 50. Okay. The coaching adjustments weren't there. They just were not there in the second half. And it should have been a closer game at the end. We also missed a field goal. So, a few things. Defense also imploded as well. I mean, but at the same time, you knew Ohio State was going to score some points with how elite they are. But I'll tell you this. I find it very strange after watching that game that they are dogs to Clemson by 2 points right now in the playoffs, because it just smells. Ohio State's the best team on ESPN's FPI and everybody in the world's power rankings. Why are they 2-point dogs against Clemson? Something really smells about this, and I wonder if it has to do with some weird stuff going on in the Big Ten. I don't know. But I just find it very strange that they're dogs. It makes me hesitate to bet Ohio State. I kind of planned on it, and then now they're dogs. Something's just not adding up here. And I'll tell you this: when they're playing in these playoff games, it's going to be neutral, and there's not going to be Big Ten officiating there either. So this just seems all very strange to me. I might have a play on it later. I haven't, but what we did do is make a lot of plays already because those bowl lines came out right away on Sunday, and I think I have at least 6 plays out there already. But that was a great game, just from the standpoint that Wisconsin was in it. And I'll tell you right now, all these experts on ESPN and other sites saying that the Badgers were going to play in the Cotton Bowl and Penn State was going to get the Rose Bowl. I mean, how much do you hate Wisconsin, guys? Or you either suck at your jobs or you just have absolute hate for this team. What makes you think that them playing an extra game at against Ohio State is going to punish them against Penn State? Who are these people that are so-called analysts? There's only 2 things. They're either not good at their job or they hate Wisconsin. Because everybody else in the world could see that Wisconsin is the second best team in the Big Ten, except for these jackasses. So I'm pissed off about that because I'm like, they got me thinking, is this true that there could be? And I was like, no way. I'm telling my buddies, I'm like, no, there's no way Wisconsin is not in the Rose Bowl. And thank God I ended up being correct there. Anyways, started out with Utah versus Oregon. Oregon was our free play that we gave out on last week, Monday, Tuesday pod. That worked out really well. They won by double digits. Utah was just kind of stoned the whole game. Couple mistakes in the first half, but Tyler Huntley wasn't even that bad. 17 for 29, 193 yards. Justin Herbert was 14 for 26 with 193 yards, but Oregon was able to run the ball. Verdell had 208 yards against this supposed Utah rushing team. I smelt the fraud when I gave this play out. I knew that Utah was only good at home, and they had a very, very cake schedule. So this is why that we gave out this Oregon play, and I'm very happy with it. What did piss me off is that we also had the under, and it would have been 7-3 instead of 7-4 rather than 6-5 in college if that garbage touchdown by Verdell didn't happen at the very end. I'm like, go down and run the clock out. But apparently that didn't work out. So whatever. Still a great win for us. A loss for us was that huge SEC championship game where LSU blew out Georgia. And I remember 3 years ago when Jake Fromm was supposed to be the guy that's going to be the great in the NFL. Then the next year it was Tua and Trevor Lawrence. And then now it's Joe Burrow. And it's still Trevor Lawrence, don't get me wrong. He's just not eligible yet. But how things changed, because I don't even know if Jake Fromm's a freaking draft pick or a very late draft pick right now. I'm sorry, but you got to be able to beat these big teams. In Jake Fromm's defense, he lost his receivers, and one of his receivers, I think it was Harrion, got extremely hurt, tore an ACL. I think DeAndre Swift went out, but they had some bad injuries. But still, you're supposed to reload when you're getting all 5-star recruits, getting beat 37-10. Why the hell did I bet on Kirby Smart? I should listen to Brian Edwards on this one. One of my losses, and wasn't too happy about that. But it would have worked out pretty cool if let's just say if my Badgers did win, it would have been an argument between them and Oklahoma. But Oklahoma would have eventually got in, so it would have been bittersweet. But it would have been definitely some controversy, which I was kind of looking for. Virginia got blown out by Clemson. Holy cow, 62-17. It's like I said, I like the over more than the side, so I had to double the play on the over, which possibly made us a little bit more profitable that week. 62-17, Clemson got the over themselves. Okay, they scored the over, so good for Clemson. And Clemson, it's hard to bet against Clemson because they've been there before. This is when they turn it up. Dabo Swinney is a damn good coach. Damn good. And LSU obviously went ahead of Ohio State. Partially was that big Georgia win. Possibly was the struggle against Wisconsin in the first half. But either way, you got to win them all out. So who cares? Why complain? You're playing elite teams anyway. Just win the 2 games. Go out there and win them. Doesn't matter. You're lucky you're in the playoffs. Oklahoma versus Baylor, and overtime happened. I'm not convinced that Oklahoma is that good. I'm not. And I know they have a powerful offense, but what would this offense do in an SEC schedule? What would this offense do in a Big Ten schedule? The Pac-12, very, very strange. Very, very strange. The Big 12. It's just, some of these teams just don't look the part, and I mean, Iowa State lost to Iowa. They've been getting their butts kicked lately, I mean, Texas Tech, brand new team, new coach. West Virginia, brand new team, new coach. Kansas State, brand new team, new coach. And they lost outright to Kansas State. I know they can put up some points. But if they play an elite defense, I'm not so sure they can put up a ton of points. And that's why you see LSU a 13-point favorite. And that's where my power ratings have it. I have it exactly at 13 points. Okay. So, obviously not a ton of value there unless you want to get really, really cute. So that was, a great game. And I was still hoping for my 26-1 Baylor to hit, but it didn't happen. The important thing is the reason you make future bets is to make money at the very end, just like we did. Large return on investment, over 100%. All right. We're looking at Cincinnati versus Memphis, and we played Cincinnati plus 10, if you remember. Well, I'm not sure if I said that I was free. I think that might have been just a members play, but I knew that'd be a lot closer of a game. Memphis kind of pulled it away at the end. So congratulations to Memphis there. They have an awesome bowl game coming up against Penn State here. And I'd hate to play Memphis. You know, you don't really get a lot of recognition for beating them, but you get your ass kicked for losing them. So that's why I was also pissed about the Badgers being in the Cotton Bowl. I'm like, against Memphis, no reward for that game. Boise State versus Hawaii. We did lose this one. Hawaii just could not get any points going in this game. Boise State just pounded the ball right through them, had the defense to stop their receivers, and they got to their quarterback. That's literally what it was. You know, Boise State, there's just kind of that ground and pound type team. You know, they Cole McDonald passed for 241. You know, Jalen Henderson only passed for 212, but he didn't need to do a ton more than that. They had 144 yards on the ground. I mean, that's just kind of Hawaii's weakness. You know, they can get run all over. So remember that when it comes to their bowl game. App State, this game wasn't close until the garbage happened at the very end, and a lot of people pushed on that, were pissed. A lot of people had Appalachian State, and it ended up at 7, right at the number. And you could have got this at 6.5. And the people that had Louisiana that took it at 6.5 are sad, but the people that took it at 7 pushed. Yeah, this game shouldn't have been that close. And we lost on the under here, and I felt stupid for betting it like 2 minutes into the game. Miami of Ohio, 26, Central Michigan 21. We were on Miami and cashed that one. I knew Central Michigan was a little bit fraudulent. Miami of Ohio has been there before, and I just love it when you look at some of those recent games that prop up a team. If they're beating bad teams, that's the time that you should fade them. That worked out perfectly. And our Florida Atlantic minus 7.5, well, they won by 43 points. So that was a big play, premium play. Florida Atlantic rocked that one. Was happy about that. You know, we're pretty fortunate actually having a pretty good year, and we're not blowing it away. We're profitable in all of our sports. The good news, the reason I'm happy and the reason I'm fortunate is because there's a lot of cappers out there on some very big shows, you know, TV shows, big podcasts, big networks that are having losing years, you know, and they claim they're the best. I'm never, ever going to claim I'm even a top handicapper by any means. But I'll tell you this, some of the people I have on, I will claim that they're top handicappers, and none of our guests are having bad years. That's awesome. I'm extremely fortunate about that. I love it when the guests we bring on are kicking butt. So feeling very fortunate this Christmas season because of that. That's not going to happen every year. There's ebbs and flows of sports betting, as we always say. And so just wanted to throw that out there that it's been a good year for the odds breakers. NFL recap. Woo! Starting with the Bears. You know, I took a lot of heat on Twitter, you know, for betting the Bears. I tweeted that I was taking them at +3 somewhere. Can't remember where, but people jumped on me and said, you know, I mentioned the Bears should be more motivated. It's a do or die for them pretty much. And the Cowboys can still win the division and lose this game. And all these amazing handicappers with amazing records, you know, came at me hard. And, you know, their Twitter record is just so awesome looking. And they say, oh, motivation should factor. Dallas should also be as motivated, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's the stuff you got to run away from. It's like, you know, motivation is a key part of handicapping, I think. And they're not always going to hit. But as long as they hit it about 55%-ish or better, you're good, you know? And so I rode the Eagles a little bit last year to the playoffs. You have to make sure you know how important it is. Like a team that hasn't won a game and they have one final chance, you're going to be on that team. Motivation is a huge part of handicapping. So I just want you listeners to remember that. If there's a team that's motivated and you see the spread is short, there's an absolute reason for it. So be careful there when you're betting. But the Bears did take care of business against Dallas. The game wasn't even close. Dallas scored all these garbage touchdowns at the end. So their yards are going to look great because the Bears were in prevent the whole time. I mean, Dak's yards had 326. Zeke had 81 rushing yards. Most of all those yards were garbage. They outgained the Bears. But it shouldn't even matter because the Bears had that game in hand. Be careful when looking at yards per play for some of these fraudulent teams that get them all in garbage time. So good for the Bears. They still might not make the playoffs now that the Rams won. They beat Seattle. The Rams just got to really beat the Cowboys next week and then beat the Cardinals at the end. They can afford to lose to the Niners. They'll get the wild card over the Bears, unless it's the Vikings, though. So that's another story. I can't remember what happened in that game, but as a Bears fan, even at 10-6, they're not guaranteed to get in. So that's kind of scary. The Falcons against the Panthers, that 20 points in the fourth quarter sure helped. It took us over the total. Was really happy about that. And Panthers are pretty much done at 5-8. They're looking for a new coach, but Kyle Allen's getting some reps, and I'm pretty sure Cam is done being a Carolina Panther. Ravens against the Bills. Now, we had two bets that lost here. So the NFL could have been, instead of 6-3, we could have been 8-1, had Josh Allen in the red zone scored that last touchdown, because we had the Bills +6, small play, and we had the over, as you remember. That's how close this one was hitting. So I was a little pissed off about that, but either way, the way the game started, I was actually a little scared that I was going to miss some other bets anyway, and then everything kind of turned out for us. The Browns beat the Bengals by 8 points, so the Bengals actually covered that. They're 8.5 most of the week, and good for the Bengals. They've kind of been covering machines the last couple of weeks here, but they're still 1-12 and probably going to get the first pick in the draft, and it's either going to be Chase Young, or if they think that they need a new quarterback because they don't like Dalton anymore, and Finley doesn't exactly look like he's the part either. I don't know. I mean, are you not going to take Joe Burrow? Are you kidding me? It's Joe Burrow or Chase Young, in my opinion. That's the only direction you can go there. The Redskins played hard. They played very hard against the Packers, and that was a small play that we put in an hour before the game started. Redskins plus the 13. I was hoping it was going to go to 14. It didn't, so I made it a small play. Probably wish I would have played it bigger, but either way, Haskins is fighting. They're 3-10 there, so it's really interesting seeing the Redskins fight right now. The Vikings against the Lions, that's not even a game, really. Blow was terrible. You knew that was his real ability was going to come out. He looked good against the Bears for a half, and that's about it. But Kirk Cousins was 24 for 30. He's great at beating those bad teams. The Niners-Saints was the game of the week, in my opinion. That game was absolutely awesome, electrifying, went to the very, very end. The Niners kicked the field goal, drove with less than a minute down. After the Saints scored that touchdown, what a fantastic game, 48-46. And we were on the Niners. It was a top premium play. Very happy about that. The Niners are fantastic, just a fantastic team. And they're every bit as good as the Ravens, in my opinion. I wouldn't doubt if you see a Ravens-Niners Super Bowl. What a great Super Bowl would that be. The Jets versus the Dolphins. Man, the Jets, I tell you, they saved my Dolphins under 5. We took Dolphins under 5 way back when it was plus money. I mean, eventually went to minus 4.5 wins juiced. So we still have that under 5 win ticket. And thank God the Jets hit that last second field goal to help us out there, because that was huge and we really needed that. Sam Darnold, 20 for 36, 2 TDs. He's kind of getting his groove going. The Jets are 5-8. So anybody that faded the Jets under 7 wins are probably a little bit nervous there too. But the Dolphins at 3-10, they could still win, obviously, 6 games and screw my under. But I think their schedule is probably going to be a little bit harder here. Actually, no, it's not. They got at the Giants, then they got the Bengals, then they got at the Patriots. Well, I expect them to lose at the Patriots, for God's sake, okay? If they're going to win out, that would just be absolutely nuts and probably be worth me losing that bet, but just to see that. But, the Giants can hopefully help me out there next week. We'll see what that spread ends up being as well. You know what? I got to tell you, man, what the hell? What kind of bug is up Ryan Tannehill's ass lately?
Hot, brash, with more covers in his first year than any rookie model ever, and an attitude that says, who cares? It's only fashion.
That Hansel's so hot right now.
That Ryan Tannehill's so hot right now. Like the movie Zoolander says, he can't be stopped. I don't know where this is coming from, but every single football team should be scared from Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill, what they're doing over there. Mike Vrabel, holy cow. They are literally in competition for this division, especially now that the Texans got their asses kicked at home in a letdown spot after beating the Patriots to the Broncos. And I'm so pissed at myself for not betting that game. But either way.
That Hansel's so hot right now.
His numbers have been absolutely sick. 21 for 27. 391 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Hot.
How are you going to stop the Tennessee Titans when they're playing like that?
That Hansel's so hot right now.
You know what? Have you Googled Ryan Tannehill's wife? Well, if you haven't, you probably should. Because marrying a girl like that can only give you confidence. And maybe that's part of the reason why you're seeing the second coming of Ryan Tannehill.
So hot right now.
But either way, the Buccaneers, they got their business done against the Colts as well. So you're looking at the Titans division. Colts lost 6-7. The Jacksonville's completely out of it, 4-9. And the Texans losing to the Broncos. This is for the taking. And our under 8.5 tickets, season wins plus money on the Tennessee Titans is not looking good. The Patriots are not looking good either because they just got beat at home by the Chiefs. But they're going to make the playoffs. And who's going to bet against the Patriots in the playoffs? Sure as hell ain't going to be me, because Tom Brady.
Freaking niggas every way like MJ.
That's Tom Brady in the playoffs. Rams versus Seahawks. Seahawks couldn't even score a touchdown this game. They scored a defensive touchdown, which has killed me in fantasy this week. Russell Wilson owners are not happy at all. But either way, the Seahawks are still 10-3. They're going to at least get the wild card, it looks like to me. The Rams have, I think 2 wild cards might come out of this division, literally, if the Rams beat the Cowboys, and then obviously they're probably going to beat the Cardinals. So they'll have 10 wins. So we'll see how the Seahawks fare here, but that's going to be very interesting. And they might just kind of ruin it all for the Eagles. They're going to ruin it for the Bears. They're going to ruin it for the Vikings. And that's pretty much all she wrote here. I mean, that division is probably the best in all of football. All right. Well, now it's time to go to our college football bowl betting spots and bowl preview. I'm just going to kind of cover every single game. If I have a spot for you, I'm going to mention it. If I don't, I'm not. I'll just tell you, but it's always interesting to try to cap motivation, like I said before, and that's why we do betting spots. And there's also going to be players holding out, and I will update as that comes. I'll be retweeting those kind of tweets. So please follow us on Twitter at the Odds Breakers. That's where we tweet those from. And so right now, I don't have a ton of information on that, but I do know some of these games that are a lot closer to home, and I do know some motivational spots. All right, now take these college football betting spots and preview with a grain of salt here. You know, it always depends upon the number, okay? So no matter what motivation a team might have, no matter what injuries they may have, you know, it always depends upon the number. So just want to make sure you know that. It just should be part of your handicap, okay? Now, some of the people sitting out of the bowl games, you know, I expect some guys from Alabama to sit out of their bowl game for sure. A lot of that hasn't been announced yet, so that's going to change things too. But like I said before, I'm going to tweet that stuff out as that information comes in. So let's get right into this. December 20th, the makers wanted Bahamas Bowl, Buffalo versus Charlotte. And this is in the Bahamas here. Both teams should be motivated here, but I just have to say that I hear that teams from the north tend to party a little bit when they get to the Bahamas, party a little harder than normal. I mean, Charlotte, North Carolina, their weather's pretty good. I mean, it's not that great, but it's not bad, you know. They have longer summers. So, you know, guys up in Toledo might come down and guys up in Buffalo might come down like guys in Toledo did last year and have a little party. Well, I don't know if that's what happened to Toledo last year, but they lost outright to Florida International. I remember we were on Florida International that game last year. The Tropical Smoothie Cafe Frisco Bowl, Utah State versus Kent State. Now, Utah State had a disappointing season compared to last year, so I see less motivation here. You know, not that great of a bowl going from Utah to Texas, I guess. Kent State's going to be very motivated because they don't go to bowls this much. As a matter of fact, I think it's their third ever. So this is a great motivational spot for Kent State. December 21st, the Celebration Bowl, and Alcorn State versus North Carolina A&T. And I don't know much about these teams, they're FCS teams, so didn't really even look into this one. I skip that game usually every year. But if I hear some value, you know, maybe I'll talk about it in the next podcast. And then we have the next one, the New Mexico Bowl. We have Central Michigan against San Diego State here. And, you know, San Diego State goes to New Mexico a lot. Albuquerque, you know, they play New Mexico and New Mexico State sometimes. You know, this bowl right here, I don't see how San Diego State can be all that motivated for it. Maybe, you know, they didn't win the Mountain West Conference. They should have. They screwed up and blew against Nevada and then lost to Hawaii. And Central Michigan, they had a good year. They made it to their championship game and lost. I expect some more motivation from Central Michigan here. They could put up some points, you know. They can, but they did struggle against Miami of Ohio's defense. So both teams should be, you know, somewhat motivated. Maybe Central Michigan, like I said, could be a little bit more motivated. The Cure Bowl, Liberty versus Georgia Southern in Orlando, Florida, Exploria Stadium. And both teams should be motivated here. Georgia Southern's an option team. Liberty hasn't been in the FBS for that long. Yeah, they're gonna try to win this game for sure. The Boca Roton Bowl, and that's SMU versus Florida Atlantic. So this is important here. This is a home game for Florida Atlantic. Okay, it's in Boca Raton, and ironically, FAU played their last bowl game here. So their last appearance 2 years ago, and they destroyed Akron. So that tells you something. That was still with Lane Kiffin. Okay, so SMU may be less motivated because the opponent's not kind of what they expected. They are having such a great year. Then they had that loss against Memphis and the Navy, but I think they deserved a little bit better for a matchup, but it's still a great location, Florida. So, I think the Florida Atlantic has definitely an edge here, at least a 2-point advantage in my opinion. So the next one is the Camellia Bowl. We have Florida International versus Arkansas State, and this is in Montgomery, Alabama. Don't really have much here. A little bit closer to Arkansas State, but nothing much there. Florida International, a little bit of a disappointing year. Both teams are kind of disappointed this year. We have the Mitsubishi Motors Las Vegas Bowl, Boise State versus Washington at Sam Boyd Stadium before they close it down. This must be the last game at Sam Boyd Stadium here. So Washington, man, I cannot believe they got placed in this situation here. Chris Peterson's coaching his last game, and he's playing his old team. Washington, lost their coach here, and it's just such a weird handicap because of that. Depending upon how this team takes their defensive coordinator he's promoted now, but Chris Peterson should be still coaching this. I don't know. It's just very strange handicap here because he's playing, the team he came from, Chris Peterson. I just find it really strange that the committee set this one up. So I'm going to move on. I haven't really thought too much about that one yet. We have the R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl, Appalachian State versus UAB. Another crappy matchup for Appalachian State. They deserve way better, in my opinion, here. UAB is not that good of a team. If they had a real schedule, they would not be a bowl team. That's why the spread started out at 19.5. I think it's down to 17-ish. I think UAB should be motivated, but Appalachian State's a much better team. I was hoping to see like an Appalachian State, possibly making it to the Cotton Bowl and playing a Penn State or something like that. It would have been a cool little revenge spot because they played a close game a little bit over a year ago. So either way, I feel bummed out for App State because I love that team. I wanted to see them match up against someone, maybe like an SEC team, or that would have been really cool. See them play Florida or something. Next game, the Bad Boy Mowers Gasparilla Bowl, UCF versus Marshall and Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida. This is more of a home game for Central Florida, obviously. So you're going to probably handicap them towards more of a home game. Marshall, yeah, they made a bowl game, but I'm not sure if that's their goal is to just play in a bowl game. Of course, the kids want to go to a bowl game, but this is a home game for Central Florida here, and we'll see if they step it up. We have the Hawaii Bowl, Hawaii versus BYU in Aloha Stadium, Honolulu. Obvious home game for Hawaii. This happens to them sometimes, but does it even matter? Because a lot of people rate them at home as not that big of a home game anyway. A lot of people come to Hawaii and love to come to Hawaii. The thing I'm not worried about BYU is that I'm not sure if the team's going to get in any trouble, because they're Mormon usually, and they don't drink.
That's terrible.
So you don't have to worry about them going to the nice weather in Hawaii necessarily and screwing up and going out the night or two beforehand. I think that BYU is going to be just fine in this spot here. So interesting handicap. I think BYU might there might not be much of a home field advantage for Hawaii here. There's going to be some BYU fans there. The Walk-Ons Independence Bowl, Louisiana Tech versus Miami. So you would think Miami would be motivated here because they've been embarrassed all year. But you never know what you're going to get from this team. Louisiana Tech's definitely going to be motivated. They get to play Miami. It'd have been cool to see Appalachian State play Miami because they would have been like a 13-point favorite over Miami, something like that. Well, maybe a 10-point favorite. I don't know, but I didn't check, but I think that Louisiana Tech's going to have plenty of motivation in this one. So, interesting, very interesting situation. Poor Miami. Gosh, get your head out of your asses. Quick Lane Bowl, Pittsburgh versus Eastern Michigan in Ford-Field, Detroit. Obviously, home game for Eastern Michigan at 37 miles away. And I'm sure all those Pittsburgh fans are real excited to go from Pittsburgh to Detroit to see this bowl game.
That's terrible.
Military Bowl, presented by Northrop Grumman. North Carolina versus Temple. This is kind of a home game for Temple, only 2 hours away. Simple drive. North Carolina is going to travel, though, I think. I think it's more of a 1-point home advantage because North Carolina hasn't been hitting a lot of bowl games over the years. So I think they're going to come there, but at the same time, this is definitely more of a home game for Temple. New era Pinstripe Bowl, Michigan State versus Wake Forest. And these teams deserve each other. They're going to be playing at Yankee Stadium. Both of these teams have been very disappointing this year. One team plays extremely fast, has a high-powered offense when they're not playing Clemson, and one team has a terrible offense and a very good defense. So it's a very interesting handicap. Which one is going to win out here? Ugly bowl. And one thing I will say, there's a lot of talk about D'Antonio being on the hot seat. So you wonder what kind of team Michigan, what kind of showing this Spartan team is going to have. I think they lose this game and he might be gone. Oklahoma State versus Texas A&M. This game's played in Houston. Home game kind of for Texas A&M here. They had a very disappointing season, but they couldn't have expected that much. So I think they're going to be motivated, and put right in their nice little backyard to help justify the old SEC. I wouldn't be shocked if you see them in the rankings if they beat Oklahoma State here somehow in the finishing rankings. San Diego County Credit Union Holiday Bowl. We have USC versus Iowa, and this is in San Diego. Good for Iowa. They get to go to a nice place, and they had a very good year. But this is kind of a home game for USC. It's only an hour and a half away. USC, I would say they shouldn't be as motivated, but why not? They've been disappointing for years now. Hell with national championship aspirations. Start winning some bowl games here. The Iowa people travel well, so they're going to show up as well. So I wouldn't give it a full home field advantage for USC, but there's a partial one for sure. The Cheez-It Bowl, Air Force versus Washington State at Chase Field in Phoenix, Arizona. So both teams should be motivated here. Interesting with an option team like Air Force there facing kind of like a high-powered offense and the not-so-good defense of Washington State. So very intriguing matchup, I think this one is. Moving to December 28th, we have the Camping World Bowl, Notre Dame versus Iowa State. Question for me, is someone going to sit out from Notre Dame or Iowa State, Brock Purdy or anything? Big questions there. I don't think Ian Book's going to sit out. I think he wants to improve his draft stock. Maybe Brock Purdy will as well. Notre Dame's a pretty tough defense, though. So we'll see what happens here. Very interested to definitely follow that one. So next game, Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic, Penn State versus Memphis. I could see some Penn State players sitting out this game, and I wonder if good old Coach Franklin feels a little too good for this game. I don't know. I mean, it's a big game. Obviously, Cotton Bowl's not bad, but it's not great either. It's not a New Year's Bowl, and it's not the playoffs. I almost feel like he's got the attitude that he's better than that. So I would almost give the edge to Memphis here. College football playoffs obviously have no motivation. angles. They're both motivated, so don't worry about that. And that's on December 28th as well. December 30th, we have the Serve Pro First Responder Bowl played in Dallas, and Western Kentucky versus Western Michigan. So really no home field advantage here. That's played in Dallas, so nothing on that one. Franklin American Mortgage Music City Bowl, and this is at Nissan Stadium in Nashville, Tennessee here. Mississippi State versus Louisville. It's a little bit more of a home game for Louisville because it's only a 2-hour drive here. So this is kind of the same deal with Temple, maybe a 1.5 type deal. So that's the way I would look at it for this Music City Bowl here in Nashville. Mississippi State's a little farther away, probably more like 400 miles or something. I didn't do it. Red Box Bowl, we have California versus Illinois at Levi Stadium, Santa Clara, California. This is obviously a home game for Cal. It's in their backyard here. Just an easy little drive to Santa Clara, half hour, 45 minutes, whatever it is from Cal. I drove around that area a few times before, but very, very interesting here, sending Illinois out there. I don't know who I can trust in this game. I probably would have to lean to Cal here. And they're definitely already have the home field advantage in the spread. I guarantee that. Let's see, and one thing about these bowl games, you wonder if the public's going to move any of this. So if it sometimes it'll be built into the spread, and general bettors might not realize it or whatever the day of the game, and you're like, well, I'm just going to have to make a play now that they moved to my number. Capital One Orange Bowl, Florida versus Virginia, and it's a home game for Florida here, but still have to drive 4.5 hours from campus. Now, Virginia's going to travel this game because they're playing in the Orange Bowl. I mean, this is big for them. So they're excited, and you're going to get definitely some Virginia fans at this game. The Belk Bowl, Virginia Tech versus Clemson at Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina. And this is more of a home game for Virginia Tech, only a 2.5-hour drive away from this location. A little bit farther for Kentucky. Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl, Florida State versus Arizona State. And this is the Sun Bowl Stadium, El Paso, Texas here. Both places, Florida State and Arizona State, meeting in the middle in Texas. No motivational angles. Florida State should be motivated because they haven't done anything for so long. Fired their coach. They probably need a nice little get-up win here to bring a momentum for next year. And, good old Hermie, he's going to have the team fired up and ready to roll himself.
Hello? You play to win the game.
The AutoZone Liberty Bowl, Navy versus Kansas State. Liberty Bowl Memorial Stadium in Memphis, Tennessee here. I see both teams being motivated. I don't see any advantage for home field. I think there's going to be fans for both teams here. The Nova Home Loans Arizona Bowl, Wyoming versus Georgia State in Arizona Stadium in Tucson, Arizona. And both these teams, Georgia State's obviously a lot farther away than Wyoming. But it's not like Wyoming's that close. I mean, you're still looking at probably a full day drive or something, or probably a plane flight. So what's that matter? Probably more money in Georgia State to fly. These people probably make more money there, I would guess. So and they're probably cool to travel to Tucson, a new place. I don't see any home field advantage for Wyoming. I heard that there was some, but I don't know about that. I think that both teams are going to be motivated here. The Valero Alamo Bowl, Utah versus Texas. And this is in San Antonio. Kind of a home game for Texas there. Will Utah have any motivation after having their hearts ripped out? Kind of like how you saw Georgia lose to Texas last year. It's interesting that Texas gets both of these teams 2 years in a row. Georgia screws up their chance to make the college football playoffs by losing, and now Utah screwed up their chances, and they both play Texas. So I find that very interesting here. I think Utah, I don't know how I could bet them here. It's just too devastating what happened to them. The January 1st New Year's Bowls, we start with the Citrus Bowl, Michigan versus Alabama, and you know Alabama might not be motivated here. They have way bigger things to do. Michigan should be very motivated, but can Harbaugh win the big game against the big teams? And they're going to be playing against a bunch of probably freshmen and sophomores. So I know Mac's going to play, Mac Jones, the quarterback, but will those big receivers, Ruggs and Harris, and will those guys play? We'll see. The Outback Bowl, Minnesota versus Auburn. I see both teams being motivated here. Minnesota kind of got their hearts ripped out a few weeks back, but they've had enough time to figure out that they aren't going to make it anyway, I think. So, I like their coach, PJ Fleck. He rows the boat, and maybe he'll row it all the way to Tampa, Florida, and win against Auburn. That would be real interesting. And then we have the Rose Bowl, my Badgers versus Oregon. There should not be any motivation here. Oregon lost that first game against Auburn, and so they're kind of out of it the whole year anyway. And Wisconsin lost to Illinois, and they're pretty much out of it then. So this is a huge game. Wisconsin respects the Rose Bowl. I almost think it's a slight more motivational for Wisconsin, being that they lost to Oregon in 2012, and I, unfortunately, was there. The All-State Sugar Bowl, Georgia versus Baylor at Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans. Home game for Georgia, but no reward. They're playing at home again. They just played there and lost to LSU. Players may be sitting out for Georgia as well. Keep your eyes open for that. January 2nd, you have the Boston College versus Cincinnati in the Birmingham Bowl in Birmingham, Alabama. Both teams should be motivated here. Lucky Boston College even made a bowl game, in my opinion. The Tech Slayer Gator Bowl, Indiana versus Tennessee here in Jacksonville, Florida. I don't see any advantages there. The famous Idaho Potato Bowl in Boise, Idaho, Ohio versus Nevada. Albertson Stadium, the blue Smurf turf. More of a home game for Nevada, but not a good reward for either team. I don't know how motivated you're going to be to play this game. And if their defenses both weren't so bad this year, I would probably bet the under, but they're very, very bad. January 4th, the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl, Southern Miss versus Tulane, and that's played in Fort Worth, Texas here. I don't see any motivational angles. I think Tulane's happy to make a bowl game, so is Southern Miss. January 6th, finally, we have the Lendingtree Bowl, Louisiana versus Miami of Ohio at Lad Peoples Stadium in Mobile, Alabama. I don't see any motivation differences as well. More of a home game for Louisiana, I believe, but I think that, Miami of Ohio, there'll be some fans there as well. All right, well, coming to our free play for, I'm going to give you a bowl game, actually, because we only have the Army-Navy game, and I have a premium play out for that, but that game is a little complicated. I'm not sure if I want to release that yet, but either way, we're going to give you the Temple hosting North Carolina, and I say hosting because, like I said before, this bowl game is just like a home game for them, and it's at the Northrop Grumman Stadium in Annapolis, Maryland. I like Temple as a dog, +6 here, okay? And not saying North Carolina isn't a good team because they had a great year. They almost beat Clemson, But I'll tell you this, North Carolina hasn't really blown out anyone until the final two games against Mercer and a terrible NC State team. And I'm saying a terrible NC State team, right? So they start out, they beat South Carolina by 4, Miami by 3. We found out how bad Miami was. Lost to Wake Forest, lost to App State. Then they lost to Clemson by 1, but that was a very good effort. And they did beat Georgia Tech by 16 points. So bravo. Georgia Tech is a bad team this year. Then they lost to Virginia Tech, only beat Duke by 3. They lost to Virginia, lost to Pittsburgh, beat Mercer, helped them get to the bowl game, and then they whipped North Carolina State. So they don't exactly blow teams out. And Temple's not a bad team. And I'll tell you right now, the ACC, everyone says how bad they sucked. Well, the American Athletic Conference might have been the best Group of 5 conference around. And you have Temple playing great as a dog, beating Memphis outright, beating South Florida, beating Tulane. They only lost to Cincinnati by 2 points at Cincinnati, whipping Connecticut. That's how they finished their season. Okay. So they also beat Georgia Tech by 22 points. So, and that was a common opponent here. So why would Temple, be dogs almost at a home type field for them is what I'm wondering. I almost think this should be a 3 or less point spread here. +6 is way too much. Both teams are about 0.8 net yards per play. And so there is really no net yards per play advantage here, I believe. I do like the quarterback better and the offense better for North Carolina. I like Sam Howell a lot. But at the same time, I also like Temple's defense a little bit better. And, Temple's, like I said, a very gritty team. So I'm going to take them +6 points for your free play for bowl season. All right, let's bring on D Nasty with some fantasy football playoffs week 15. Now it is time for a little fantasy football week 11 playoffs, and we have our guy D Nasty back to break down all the information you need to win your week. This episode is being brought to you by Thrive Fantasy DFS for a $10 deposit bonus. Please visit theoddsbreakers.com/thrive-DFS. Terms and conditions apply. Dave, how the hell you doing, man? How was your weekend?
Good. How about you, Kiev?
It was great. It was great, man. A lot of awesome games in college. My Bears won on Thursday. That set me off really good. Obviously, our Badgers lost, but they tried very hard as well, and had a hell of a first half there. But all in all, the bets went well, and I'm barely alive right now, playing you in fantasy, hoping Miles Sanders breaks his leg. Well, no, not breaks his leg.
Or scores a touchdown.
Not breaks his leg. I would never wish anything like that. Let's just hope Miles Sanders catches a cold real quick or something, gets the flu. All of a sudden the flu symptoms might happen and take him out. But the good news is that he hasn't scored that much, and there's only 9 minutes left. So I have a shot here of passing you. I had Russell Wilson this week, which probably a lot of listeners had Russell Wilson, and he didn't do anything. DK Metcalf I had, and Ingram was out, so I had to play Hollister, and he didn't get anything. So I have a lot of Seahawks, obviously, on my roster, and they've been doing really well. And, of course, I started Mac over Austin Eckler, Dave, and Eckler went off against the Jaguars because I didn't trust Eckler with Melvin Gordon there. And then Mac comes back. You think, he's playing Tampa Bay and he's going to do something. No, he didn't do that much. He got me 9 points, man. So that's why me and your games are so close here.
Sounds like a manager issue on your end.
Right, dude. I don't think anyone would have started Eckler over Mac. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe it was an issue. I don't know. But either way, this thing's coming down to the last minute here. So we'll see what happens, man. But hey, a lot of key injuries here, Dave, and that's not good for some people. And the thing about your team is you actually lost a lot of guys during this game. And why don't you get started?
All right, yes. I lost 4 key players this week in my team that I'm playing Kiev with this week. So even though I'm limping against him this week, I still might beat him even, showing you how good of a manager I am over Kiev. But anyways, Darius Geist, my first injured player.
Wait, Dave. Did you start Jacksonville's defense against the Chargers this week? So I won't go too far in what you did in that league, my man. But negative points there.
Well, Philip Rivers actually struggled the week before, if you remember. So that's why I thought the Jacksonville Jaguars defense could do something against them or get a couple picks at least. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to go into key injuries now. Darius Geist suffered an MCL sprain during Sunday's loss to the Packers. He's going for an MRI tomorrow. He may be out for the rest of the year. Mike Evans, wide out for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, suffered a hamstring injury. He's going to be out for the rest of the year. They confirmed that today. Jameis Winston had a tiny fracture in his throwing hand that caused him to miss the second half. New Orleans tight end started off with a bang with 2 touchdowns, and then he suffered a head injury, did not return. So he will be questionable. He could have a concussion, so he is questionable. He may not play this next week. Tom Brady was seen at the post-game podium following their loss with a wrap and ice bag on his right elbow. So he's questionable right now, but I think he's going to be probable to play probably. So you'll probably count on him playing. Same with Patrick Mahomes, quarterback for the Chiefs. He had a right hand injury. They say it's just a bruise after MRIs. They say everything was negative, so it's just a bad bruise. So he just had trouble gripping the football. He will play this week as well. Then we got Josh Jacobs, one of my other guys on my team, officially inactive this past week. He's going for an MRI. He's supposedly has a broken bone in his shoulder, so that he is questionable. He could be out for the rest of the year as well, possibly. Then Raiders tight end Foster Moreau was ruled out against Tennessee with a knee injury. He had cut TD before that, though. And then Ryan Griffin, tight end for the Jets, he left with an ankle injury. And running back Viola Powell with an ankle injury as well. And Le'Veon Bell did not play with an illness. So Le'Veon Bell should be back, but you might want to keep an eye on those other two because they may not play this week. Then my last guy that was on my team when I played Kiev in this week was Shard Penny, ruled out against the Rams with a knee injury. He suffered a sprained ACL and is significant, so he's out for the rest of the year as well.
Yeah, I mean, a sprained ACL being out for the next 3-4 weeks, that's interesting. That's usually not diagnosed like that quick. I almost think it's like, what kind of sprain is that?
Yeah, I don't understand that either. It could be just a tear and they just don't know it yet, though.
Yeah, well, they seem to be pretty serious about this. I would think there's a slight tear or something there. I mean, normally with sprained ACL, they take it week to week, because I've seen guys come back after 2 weeks on a sprained ACL. I don't know. It's weird. It's not like a grade 3 hamstring or nothing, but no, good stuff there. Did you mention DJ Chark's ankle injury? He went out a little bit. Mark Andrews went out for the Ravens with a knee injury and didn't return, so I'm going to monitor that. Albert Wilson and Devontae Parker for the Dolphins had concussions. They didn't return. So I'm going to monitor that a little bit. Jared Cook had that concussion. You might have mentioned him. I don't know if you did.
Yeah, Jared.
Yeah, I thought you did. And Ryan Griffin, ankle left last game for the Jets.
Another key one is Calvin Ridley. That's another guy that I had on my team against Kiev. He has an abdomen injury, and he's going to be out for the rest of the year as well.
Yeah, what the hell happened? He tear his abdomen muscle? That's what I'm thinking. Like something serious, like Roquan Smith for the Bears tore his pec. He's out for the season. Whenever someone tears their pec, it's a bad injury, and they're out for a long time, 3 months minimum. And now 6 months minimum, I think, with a torn pec. Jeez. Yeah, that could be something like that. And it looks like Alshon Jeffrey got carted off this game here, too. So I'm wondering, how bad he is. He's been banged up all year, as you know, Dave. So good old Alshon. He just has not been that good of a fantasy stud this year, has he?
No, I agree. He's injury prone.
All right, well, let's get right into the waiver wire then. So who are we picking up to win the next round of playoffs? Or if you're just playing for a draft pick, because in our leagues, we like to have the bottom 6 teams play for first-round draft picks so nobody tanks, and makes it so they're actually more involved in the playoffs. So not sure if your leagues do that, but it's something I definitely suggest you doing. Adrian Peterson is the pickup for Geis. He's owned in 38% of Yahoo leagues. He should be picked up for sure, and I believe they play the Eagles, so they'll get some opportunity. He'll get some opportunity there to make some yards. Deontay Johnson, wide receiver. If Smith-Schuster remains out, we've mentioned Deontay Johnson, but just want to re-mention him again because he has had a great game. DeAndre Washington, for the Josh Jacobs injury. If Jacobs is out, DeAndre Washington is a must-own, in my opinion. I think he is a huge player for the Raiders here. Gruden's going to use him a ton. Justin Watson, wide receiver for Tampa. When Evans went out, he had 8 targets. But another person for Tampa is Brashard Perryman, for Evans' injury. And I don't know why he didn't get as many targets, but he might in the future because I just think Perryman's the bigger name there. Willie Snead, Baltimore's playing the Jets there. You might want to pick up Willie Snead just because of the value and the defense he's facing. Ian Thomas, tight end, had a great day taking over for Greg Olson's woes for Carolina. So Ian Thompson had a ton of targets. Thomas had, I think, minimum 8 targets or something. Alan Hearns, he might have a great game. The only pass catcher really left for Miami if those concussions hold still with Devontae Parker and Albert Wilson. Next I have is a couple defenses for you guys that are sitting in the waiver wires. Believe it or not, KC's D has been a little bit better. You saw them just play the Patriots. You saw them play the Broncos. This D has stepped it up lately. I'm actually pretty impressed with them. So, what I'm going to say is that I think that Kansas City's D might win you next week. And also, believe it or not, Oakland's D has got Jacksonville. Jacksonville's just been terrible. And Oakland's was embarrassed last week against Tennessee. And they're playing at home. I think they could have a good week here. Now, you're not going to replace Oakland's for San Fran's D or anything like that. But if you kind of have a middle-of-the-road D that has a tough matchup this week, I wouldn't mind taking a flyer at Oakland's D. Dave, who do you have for waivers?
A couple guys I like. There's 2 Broncos that I like. Actually, the first one is going to be Noah Fant. We talked about him in the past, but he had a couple down weeks, but then this past week he blew up again. 4 receptions, 4 targets, 113 yards, and a touchdown. The new quarterback, Drew Lock, who's been starting the next week, is my next pickup. I do like him a lot. This past week, Drew Lock went for 309 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. He's been playing very well for the Broncos. If you do need a quarterback this week, Drew Lock would be a nice pickup. They are playing, however, the Chiefs, and I do agree with Kiev. The Chiefs' defense has looked very well. But then again, Drew Lock has looked very good as well, too, in his 2 starts since he came off the injured list. So definitely a guy you want to take a look at. Hayden Hurst, with Mark Andrews leaving the game with a knee injury. It doesn't sound seriously terrible, but if he does not play this week, Hayden Hurst would be the guy that you want to pick up. He would be his replacement, and he would get quite a few looks because Lamar Jackson does like throwing to his tight ends. So definitely look at Hayden Hurst if you're looking for a tight end. And then Patrick Laird, we did talk about him briefly last week, but he did get a majority of the carries. He had 19 touches this past week to just 5 for Myles Gaskin. And he had 48 yards, and then he had 4 catches as well, so for 38 receiving yards. So definitely take a look at him if you need a running back this week.
Absolutely. And isn't he playing the Bengals?
Matchup for Laird, he is playing. Let me double check here. They are playing the Giants.
The Giants. Okay, so that's a
good matchup as well.
Yeah, that's a pretty good matchup. You got to give it to that. Okay, I couldn't remember which one. Thank you, Dave. No, fantastic stuff there. Like it. How about your non-starters trending up for Week 15, or you can call the Week 15 love list of non-starters, whatever.
Okay. One of the guys I do like right now is going to be Hayden Hurst against the Jets. The Jets do have a decent defense against the run, but I do like the Ravens this week against the Jets, and I do like Gus Edwards. He might not be a guy you think of normally, but he might get some carries this week if they're up big against the Jets. I do look for the Ravens to just crush the Jets this week because I don't think they're still that good. So I do look for Gus Edwards to have a good day, and then Hayden Hurst if Andrews is still out. I do like James White for the Patriots. He had a big week a couple weeks ago. They are playing the Porsche Bengals defense. I like for James White to have a breakout this week against the Bengals. I do like Brashard Perryman this week against the Lions, the guy who just talked about picking up. I like him filling in for Mike Evans. I think he could have a big day against the Lions' poor defense. And then I do like Drew Lock, even though they're playing the Chiefs' tough defense. I like him this week against the Chiefs. Ryan Fitzpatrick, I like him against the Giants. The Giants have a poor defense against the pass. I don't like Laird, though. Still, he hasn't really had a big game since he's been starting, but I do like Ryan Fitzpatrick this week against the Giants. I do like the Eagles. I like Carson Wentz and Sanders, who hopefully gets me a TD still tonight, but it's not looking good right now. I do like them against the Redskins. I do actually like Trubisky against the Packers. The Packers have been getting up some big plays, so I hate to say it, but Trubisky might be the real deal. Over the last 2-3 weeks, he's really stepped it up. So the guy you might not be starting and could hope maybe even win your fantasy game this week in the playoffs is Trubisky. So I do like him this week against the Packers, even though he is playing my team. And then another guy I like is actually Kirk Cousins. So going with another guy in the NFC. Chargers defense hasn't really done much. They do have both their safeties back though now, so their defense is looking up a little bit. But I feel like for Cousins, they have a big week this week as well. And then both Browns too, Chubb and Mayfield. You probably already started Chubb already, but the other guy I do like over Chubb is actually Hunt. He's actually scored the last 3 weeks. He's getting quite a few receptions. I do like him and Mayfield against the Cardinals.
No, good call. Yeah, Kareem Hunt. You got to think about him and Mayfield. God, he's got to do something here. All that firepower on the Browns and firepower on the Cowboys, and they haven't been really living up to it, have they? I mean, how bad have they been? Holy smokes! So that's real interesting.
And then other guy too I like a lot this week that we did talk about on our pickup visa is Raheem Mostert. He had a huge game. He looks like the lead back now for the 49ers possibly. So if he's still out there possibly, pick him up right away and start him this week because he could have a huge day against the Falcons.
Yeah, I don't know who to start against the Falcons, but they're going to run, all over them probably, I would think. And you got Wilson there. If Wilson's not hurt, I don't think he is still.
Yep, he's hurt.
Oh, is he still hurt? Okay, well, you still have Breda and a couple other guys there. So, wow, so that's real interesting here. Woo! I don't know who to start with the Niners, man. If you're desperate, I would say Wilson or Mostert, not Wilson. I mean Breda or Mostert. But is Coleman still injured?
He's back. He's healthy.
Okay,
Breida still injured. So Breida and Wilson, but Wilson I think they just placed on the IR, and then Breida he may be back this week, but Mostert's actually overtaken Coleman on the pecking order now.
Okay, gotcha. Holy cow! Oh, Sanders almost got a touchdown. Miles Sanders rushed for 1 yard, tackled though. Holy cow! It's 1st and goal, and they're at the 2-yard line or something. So there you go, Dave. One touchdown might.
Yeah. 1 yard, that's all I need, baby.
I know. That's actually going to get you like really close to me. I think we'd be almost tied if that happened. So there you go. This is coming down to the very end, and that's really interesting that we're recording while this happens. So probably be done by then, though. Don't want to bore our listeners with it anyway. So I'm going to get right into my non-starters trending up. I got Marquise Brown. And he's playing the Jets this week, so I like that. I think he's kind of that every other week kind of guy, so I think he's going to have a good with Lamar throwing to him. I like Sonny Michel playing the Bengals this week. They have the worst run D, and the Patriots are going to run the ball a lot. Protect Brady and his little elbow he had to ice up after that loss. And one guy that you can't forget about is A.J. Brown here because he has, guess who throwing to him?
So hot right now.
Ryan Tannehill.
That's right, man. So hot right now. He's just been lighting it up. I mean, now he gets 153 yards and 2 touchdowns last game. A.J. Brown, he's a starter in my opinion. He's a wide receiver too, possibly flex, but, worst case scenario. Cortland Sutton, wide receiver versus the Chiefs this week. I like that. And you did mention the quarterback there, Drew Lock. So I do agree with you. Allen Hurns versus the Giants D if Miami has no one to throw to. Zach Ertz versus the Redskins. And I think the Redskins are possibly going to get pounded if the Eagles lose this game. And Terry McLaurin versus the Eagles. I think him and Dwayne Haskins have been racking up a few points lately, so I think he's a non-starter that's really trending up. DeAndre Washington, obviously, against the Jaguars, that's huge. He's going to have a huge game. Jarvis Landry against the Cardinals because I think Peterson's going to be on Odell Beckham, so I can see Jarvis Landry getting all the points there. And I got Emmanuel Sanders, and he's a borderline starter anyway, I guess, but they're playing that bad Falcons D. And so I like Emmanuel Sanders right there, my man. Going to go quickly right into Bus, then Dave. And Matt Ryan against the 49ers. He's been having some great weeks, but I think it's all going to end here. But I do have a caveat. The Niners are a little bit banged up, and Richard Sherman's probably going to miss this game. So maybe he'll find a few players there. But the Niners pass rush is going to just destroy him, in my opinion. So I'm really concerned for Matt Ryan. Melvin Gordon versus the Vikings. I think he's a bust this week. Plus, there's just too many points going to Eckler lately. Aaron Jones might be a bust against the Bears because they get Akeem Hicks back. Now, the Bears did lose Roquan Smith, but that didn't really matter last week when they played the Cowboys. They stopped their best player, Zeke, to only 81 yards. So I don't like Aaron Jones that much against that matchup. Sam Darnold versus the Ravens. Don't like that matchup at all. Carlos Hyde against the Tennessee Titans. The way the Titans have been playing, I do not like Carlos Hyde. I don't like Joe Mixon against the Patriots. You know, the Patriots are going to show some D next week. I don't like Marlon Mack at all against the Saints, which sucks. So it's not going to be return of the Mack for me into my lineup. And Josh Allen against the Steelers. The Steelers get to quarterbacks. I don't love Josh Allen this week. Who are your busts, Dave?
I had a lot of the same guys as you did. I agree with you on the Marlon Mack one. I don't like Marlon Mack coming off injury and playing a tough Saints D. I don't like him against the Saints. I'd say that both the Steelers running backs, James Conner, if he is back, or Benny Snell, or Jalen Samuels, I don't like any of them against the Bills' tough defense. I'd say all the running backs, too, for the Falcons. Devontae Freeman had a really nice week this past week, but I don't see him doing that again against the 49ers, so I downgrade him. I do not like Leonard Fournette this week against the Raiders. The Raiders, I think, will come to play this week on defense, like you said. I think the Raiders' defense could have a good week this week, so I'm just downgrading Leonard Fournette a little bit here as well. And I'm also going to downgrade Melvin Gordon and Eckler against the tough Vikings defense as well. I do agree with you on the Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. I say both of them would be downgraded against the tough Bears defense. I do not like the Redskins AP against the Eagles. They do have a pretty good run defense, but their pass defense I do like. McLaren, like you said, against them, so I do like them that as well. And then the other one would be Joe Mixon. I agree with you on that one. I don't think Mixon's going to have a good day against the Patriots or Dalton if anyone is starting him, but I would hope no one's starting him as well.
Right, I would hope not. All right, my man. Well, that's good stuff, Dave. It's good news and some bad news for you. The bad news. You want the bad news first?
I already know that Sanders didn't score.
Yes, but the good news is now it looks like overtime. So we're gonna have to put ourselves through more pain here. 17-17. So there's still a chance, my man. My nasty sleeper of the week, Dave, I got two of them for you because one's got a caveat here. It's Allen Hurns for Miami playing that Giants bad secondary with Fitzmagic throwing to him. You know, I think he can have a great day. But the caveat is one of those guys, Parker or Wilson, has to be out, one or both, obviously. And, I'm thinking that's going to happen anyway. Concussions are, usually 1 week sit out type deal in the NFL these days. And DeAndre Washington, running back against the Jaguars for Josh Jacobs' injury there, as long as Josh Jacobs is injured, which we think he's going to miss, broken bone in his shoulder. That's going to be a huge matchup for him. He's going to score a ton of points, Dave. Who is your nasty sleeper?
Well, it looks like I have to do two as well because you went up to me last week with two, and this week you did two as well. So I'm going to give you two D-nasty sleepers as well this week. My first one is going to be Darius Layton. He had a big week tonight, actually. He had 5 catches, over 150 yards, and 2 TDs. I look for him to continue his hot streak against the poor Dolphins defense. I look for him to be one of my D-nasty sleepers of the week. And the other one I'm going with is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers wide receiver, Brashard Perryman. I look for him to have a big week as well, filling in for Mike Evans.
Oh, I love it, man. Those are some great ones right there as well. And you know that Tampa can absolutely light it up, my man. Well, cool, Dave. That's some great information. Hopefully people benefit. My sleeper came through pretty big last week with Pascal, and I did start him against you, and he's the reason I'm in this game. He got a touchdown for the Colts, scored me 17.9 points. So hopefully your nasty sleepers come through as well. And it's going to be a huge week because it is to win and get to the championship game for fantasy football playoffs. Dave, any last thoughts before we go?
No, good luck in the playoffs, everybody, this week.
All right. Thanks, Dave. Everyone have a fantastic week. Make sure that you get out and win your playoffs and go get some wins.